counterintelligence sources confirm a network of Iranian state assets has successfully infiltrated the most advanced research laboratories in the United States.
But this is not about stealing military blueprints. It is about seizing the source code of future warfare. How is Tehran turning America's own universities into its most productive weapons development program? The operation is codenamed the Ghost Protocol by some Western intelligence agencies. It represents a strategic shift in espionage. The objective is not to acquire classified military secrets, which are heavily guarded. Instead, the focus is on a far softer, more vulnerable target: the unclassified but revolutionary research and development taking place in the open environment of American academia. This is a patient, long-term campaign orchestrated by Iran's Ministry of Intelligence and Security, the MOIS. For over a decade, it has been methodically placing its assets, not in government agencies, but in the PhD programs and postdoctoral fellowships of elite institutions. These are not hardened spies in the traditional sense. They are brilliant young scientists, top graduates from institutions like Sharif University of Technology in Tehran, who are co-opted and cultivated long before they ever set foot on American soil. They are ghosts. They blend in seamlessly. Their academic credentials impeccable. Their motivations seemingly pure. They publish papers, attend conferences, and collaborate with the brightest minds in the West. Yet their primary mission is to identify, acquire, and exfiltrate foundational, dual-use knowledge that can be weaponized by the state. The fields are specific and critical to 21st century warfare: quantum computing, artificial intelligence and machine learning, advanced materials, science, and synthetic biology. The war for technological supremacy is no longer being fought only in secret military installations. It is being fought in the lecture halls of Cambridge, Massachusetts, and the research commons of Palo Alto, California. Tehran understands it cannot compete with the United States' $1.7 trillion annual defense and technology budget. So it has devised a strategy of asymmetric intellectual warfare to neutralize America's technological edge before it can even be fully realized and deployed. A single stolen algorithm, a breakthrough in material science, can save the Iranian regime billions of dollars and years of research, fundamentally altering the strategic balance without a single shot being fired. The operation's success hinges on a key vulnerability in Western academia: the principle of open, collaborative research. But what happens when that openness is weaponized? The data suggests this is not just theoretical. It is impacting the deployment timeline of next-generation U.S. defense platforms. How much of America's future arsenal is being silently compromised today? The methodology of the Ivy League ghosts is elegant in its simplicity. It avoids the high-risk, high-profile cyber attacks that trigger immediate alarms. Instead, it relies on a low and slow approach. An MOIS asset, a PhD candidate, is assigned to a professor leading research in autonomous drone swarm logic. The research is funded by a university grant, entirely unclassified. The student's work is exceptional. Over a period of 3 to 4 years, they make significant contributions to the core algorithms that allow drones to communicate and make collective decisions without a human operator. This knowledge is not exfiltrated in a single, dramatic data breach. It is bled out. It leaves in fragments, embedded within seemingly innocuous academic papers shared with colleagues in Iran for peer review. It is carried on encrypted personal thumb drives during holiday visits home. It is discussed in coded conversations over encrypted messaging apps, with handlers posing as academic mentors. Each individual transfer is small, almost undetectable, and often technically not illegal. But when aggregated and reassembled in a secure facility outside Tehran, it provides the complete blueprint for a revolutionary military technology. This is death by 1,000 cuts. The cumulative effect of hundreds of such assets across dozens of universities is a massive, clandestine transfer of intellectual property. This allows Iran to bypass international sanctions designed to cripple its technological and military development. Why attempt to smuggle a proscribed guidance system component when you can steal the foundational knowledge to build a better one yourself? It is a paradigm shift from stealing the product to stealing the process. This strategic bleed of intellectual property has direct consequences for global markets. How does a single stolen algorithm in a university lab translate to a multi-billion-dollar shift in the defense and technology sectors, potentially devaluing established American companies and creating unforeseen risk for investors? The impact is twofold. First, it introduces profound uncertainty into the valuation of intellectual property for major technology and defense corporations. These companies invest billions in research and development, with the expectation of a significant, long-term competitive advantage. When the foundational science that underpins that R&D is siphoned off by a state adversary, the timeline for that advantage shrinks dramatically. The market begins to price in the risk that a competitor, in this case the Iranian military-industrial complex, could field a similar or even superior technology at a fraction of the cost, eroding future profits. Second, it allows Iran to leapfrog entire generations of military hardware. Consider the development of their drone program. For years, Iranian drones were considered derivative and second tier. However, recent analysis of downed drones in conflict zones from Ukraine to the Red Sea shows a sudden, non-linear advancement in their autonomous capabilities, electronic warfare resistance, and swarm coordination. Intelligence analysts now assess with high confidence that these advancements are not the result of indigenous innovation alone. They are the direct product of the Ghost Protocol. The research conducted in American labs on Monday is being integrated into Iranian weapon systems by Friday. This is the core of Tehran's neutralization strategy. It is a quiet, intellectual insurgency designed to erode the pillars of American power. The goal is not parity. Iran knows it cannot build 11 aircraft carriers. The goal is to develop specific, low-cost technologies like autonomous swarming torpedo boats or AI-guided anti-ship missiles that can effectively challenge and neutralize those multi-billion-dollar assets. It is about creating a strategic deterrent on the cheap, funded by American university research grants. Federal investigators are now mapping a network of shell companies and academic foundations, funded by Tehran, acting as logistical and financial support for these ghost assets. The trail leads directly back to high-ranking officials within the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Quds Force. The challenge for counterintelligence agencies like the Federal Bureau of Investigation is immense. The very nature of the operation makes it difficult to combat. How does an agency differentiate a legitimate Iranian student pursuing knowledge from a dedicated intelligence asset? The line is blurred, often deliberately. The asset may not even be a fully conscious agent at first, but is slowly cultivated and pressured over time, using family back in Iran as leverage. Furthermore, prosecution is a legal minefield. The research material being transferred is, in most cases, not classified under existing law. The Export Administration regulations and International Traffic in Arms regulations are designed to control the transfer of finished technologies and specific sensitive data, not the foundational academic principles that precede them. To secure a conviction, prosecutors must prove not only that the information was transferred, but that the individual possessed a specific intent to provide it to the Iranian government for a military application. It is an exceptionally high legal bar to clear. The scale of the infiltration is only now becoming clear. A recent, classified multi-agency threat assessment reviewed by Global Crisis Radar estimates the number of potential assets currently operating inside American and allied academic institutions to be in the low hundreds. They are not concentrated in one place, but distributed across a wide range of universities and disciplines, a diffuse network that is difficult to map and even harder to dismantle. Each asset acts as a listening post, a silent collector of data. The current focus of one major FBI counterintelligence probe, codenamed Operation Ivy Shield, is a single postdoctoral fellow in applied physics at a major northeastern university. This individual, operating under deep cover for an estimated 6 years, is working at the absolute cutting edge of quantum encryption. This is the technology that will secure all future military and intelligence communications, rendering them theoretically unbreakable. Intelligence suggests this asset is on the verge of solving a key equation, the final piece of a puzzle that would give Tehran the keys to the kingdom. The call isn't to a tactical team, it's to a cryptographer at the National Security Agency. The agent's voice is low, urgent. He's writing on the board. He's adding a variable, a recursive element that shouldn't be there. Get Langley on the line. I think he's poisoning the well. This is the terrifying new evolution of the Ghost Protocol. It's the point where espionage pivots into active sabotage. What if the goal was never just to steal the keys to the kingdom? What if the goal was to change the locks on the doors and hand your enemy a master key they don't even know you have? The FBI now believes this asset, and potentially others, are not merely exfiltrating data. They are engaged in a far more insidious campaign: the deliberate corruption of foundational research. They are inserting tiny, elegant, almost undetectable flaws into core scientific equations. Flaws that would be built into the very bedrock of next-generation American military technology. Think of it as a genetic defect planted at the embryonic stage of development. The quantum encryption system would be built, tested, and deployed. It would pass every diagnostic, appearing to be the most secure communications network ever created. But deep within its quantum architecture would lie a hidden backdoor, a mathematical skeleton key known only to Tehran. Suddenly, every secure communication, every drone command, every nuclear launch code transmitted through that network would be an open book to the IRGC. The ultimate defense would become the ultimate vulnerability. This reframes the entire threat.
The Ghost Protocol is not just about leveling the playing field. It's about rigging the game before it even begins. This moves beyond theft into a realm of strategic deception that is almost impossible to defend against. How do you find a flaw in a system that is, by its very nature, so complex that only a handful of people on the planet can truly understand it? The FBI and NSA are now in an impossible position. If they arrest the asset, they tip their hand. Iran would know their sabotage has been discovered and would simply activate another cell to try a different approach. But if they let him continue, they risk him completing his work and successfully transmitting the corrupted formula, the poisoned key, back to his handlers. It is a high-stakes game of intellectual chicken. Right now, U.S. cyber warfare specialists are reverse engineering the asset's work in real time, trying to find the flaw he is implanting, hoping they can isolate it, understand it, and perhaps even turn it into a trap of their own. But then, during a routine review of the surveillance footage, an analyst noticed something impossible. The asset wasn't just writing equations. He was tapping out Morse code with his pen against the whiteboard. The message was not for Tehran. It was for the FBI agents he knew were watching. It said, "He's not here. The real leak is in biology." Was this a desperate cry for help, or the most sophisticated layer of deception yet? The message hung in the air of the secure room, a ghost of dots and dashes that instantly reframed everything. The physicist wasn't the target. He was the signal flare. He was an intentional sacrifice, a noisy, brilliant distraction designed to absorb the full attention of America's counterintelligence apparatus.
While the NSA's best cryptographers and the FBI's top agents were staring at a whiteboard in Cambridge, the real attack was unfolding silently, in a completely different domain. The search pivoted with terrifying speed. Operation Ivy Shield's primary target was no longer a physicist. It was now a cluster of geneticists and bioengineers, embedded not in weapons research, but in public-facing genomic databases and private agricultural tech firms. The real leak wasn't a quantum equation. It was a corrupted gene sequence. The strategy was diabolical in its simplicity. Instead of planting a flaw in a weapons system, they were planting a flaw in the building blocks of life itself. A subtle, dormant genetic marker inserted into a public DNA database designed to be picked up by researchers and incorporated into next-generation medical treatments. Or, a seemingly benign modification to a seed stock's genome, creating a hidden vulnerability to a specific, engineered blight that could be triggered years later. This was the ultimate evolution of the Ghost Protocol. Not a backdoor into a server, but a backdoor into a species. The ability to switch off a nation's food supply, or introduce a catastrophic vulnerability into its population's genetic code. It was sabotage on a biological scale, a poison pill slipped not into a formula, but into the very blueprint of life. The war wasn't coming. It was already inside us, downloaded and saved. The battlefield has changed. The front lines are no longer drawn on maps, but in lines of code, both digital and genetic.
The threats of tomorrow are not soldiers crossing a border, but invisible ideas that corrupt our systems from within, turning our greatest strengths into our most profound vulnerabilities.
To understand this new reality, to see the connections before they become a crisis, you need more than just headlines. You need a radar. This is the new front line, and we are your watchmen. To stay ahead of the threats that are reshaping our world, subscribe to global_crisis_radar. The future is complex. We'll help you see it coming.